in halacha, there's a whole discussion about Suda Shlishit on Shabbat. Suda Shlishit on Shabbat, the Shulchan Aruch says that a person, the Chatchila, is supposed to go ahead and have bread, right? What are you supposed to have on Suda Shlishit? You're supposed to go ahead and have bread, right? That's what you're supposed to go ahead, the Chatchila, have on Suda Shlishit. What about if you can't have bread? What about is there some other option to fulfill Suda Shlishit with, right? So the Shulchan Aruch brings different opinions regarding the Suda Shlishit. He says, and good morning, Mr. Batesh. In the Shulchan Aruch, connect to the Gemara that we had the Gemara yesterday that Rabbi Eliezer on Sukkot, he originally held, Rabbi Eliezer said he originally held you need to have 14 meals on Sukkot, then he retracted, he agreed to the Chachamim, good morning everybody, that you have to have the first night of Sukkot is a must, you have to go to the Sukkah the first night of Sukkot. Whether you have to, if it's raining, it's not raining, good morning Simon, we have to go to the Sukkah, it's a matter of discussion. And you know, there's a special mitzvah, like just like the first night of Pesach, you have to eat matzah. So the first night of Sukkot, you have to go ahead and go to the Sukkah. And then he said, if you miss the first night of Sukkot, you can make up the meal. You need to make up the meal. You have any time through the holiday of Sukkot, you can make up the meal. You can even make it up on Shmini Atzeret. On Shmini Atzeret, which is really the next Yom Tov, it's a separate Yom Tov. That's what we say Hashechianu on Shmini Atzeret, right, Adam? We say in the Kiddush Shmini Atzeret Hashechianu because it's a separate Yom Tov. You can still make up for the lost meal on the first night of Sukkot, just like we have a korban. You can make up if you miss bringing the korban on the first day of Sukkot. You can make it up. So even on Shmini Atzeret, so too you can make up the meal that you missed in the night of Sukkot. He compares it to a korban, so holy. You can make it up. You should know, talking about a korban, that there's a makeup of a korban. This week's parasha is Parashas Lech Lecha, and Lech Lecha has the idea of Brit Milah, right? We have the mitzvah of Brit Milah that was given to Abraham. In that mitzvah, the Rabbeinu Bachai points out to appreciate the accomplishment, what's happening by a brit, by a circumcision. A circumcision, it has many similarities to a korban, to an offering. There is blood by a korban, by an offering. There's blood by a what? Circumcision. To bring an animal for an offering, for a korban, it has to be minimum 8 days. 8 days. The animal has to be at least 8 days old. You can't use an animal that was just born yesterday to bring as a korban. It has to be 8 days old. So too, a baby has to be what? 8 days. 8 days old. And he also says when you eat a korban, and eating of the korban is a kapara, it serves as an atonement. So too, when you eat at a brit milah, when you go to a sudah, when you go to a brit milah and you eat something, you say a nice bracha and you eat, that serves as a what? As a kapara. So the similarities between a brit milah and a korban, and really we know a brit milah is something that's very, it's a big ask, so to speak, of Hashem, of the people. But the big ask, obviously, if the big ask is a big deal. It's a big, that shows you this the amazingness of that mitzvah, and what happens, what's accomplished through the big ask is big things, the kapara, atonement. So therefore, to appreciate when you go to a brit milah, when you go to a circumcision, you're involved in an event which is a kapara, which is a great atonement. So getting back to our situation here, he says if you missed the meal the night of Sukkot, you make it up. And the Gemara says, how do you make it up? What do you make it up with? The Gemara says you can even make it up. You don't technically have to make an extra full meal. You can make it up by having mini targima, by having a special delicacies. And that's like a special dish in honor of the meal that I missed. And as we explained, you go ahead and when you finish your meal, let's say you finish your meal, the regular meal that you're having on Sukkot, or let's say you finish Shmini Atzeret, and you usually don't have this extra food, you bring out this extra food, and this will serve as your makeup. So Tosfos gets into the question that the same way, first Tosfos wants to know what is Mine Targima? What is this Mine Targima? What is this food that you're bringing in that's going to serve as the meal, as the makeup meal? So Tosfos, Rashi says fruits and some other things. Tosfos takes issue. Tosfos says that Mine Targima is like meat, fish, and other things that you would have at a bread meal. That's what Tosfos says. So now the question is, when it comes to Shabbat, when it comes to Suda Shlishit, can a person use this Mine Targima? Good morning, Jaime.
Morning, Rabbi.
And welcome back.
Thank you.
So the question is, can a person use, we mentioned in the Gemara, Jaime, that if a person missed the first night of Sukkot eating in the Sukkah, there's an opinion in the Gemara that says he needs to make up that meal. It's not the halakha. You have to make it up. You missed the meal, you have to make it up. And how do you make it up? So this rabbi said you can make it up. You don't have to use bread to make up the meal. You can use some other sweet things. And the question is, what are those sweet things that you could use? So that's a matter of dispute. Or it might be cake, it might be fish, or sweet things and other types of foods that you have in a meal. Tosfos says it means meat, it means fish, and these type of things. So now the question is, the same way you could use these items to make up the meal on Sukkot that you missed. Again, we don't hold you need to make up the meal, but the Rabbi Eliezer held you need to, we don't hold in halacha. Can you learn from here for Suda Shlishit of Shabbat that could you use these type of foods, Mine Targima, non-bread foods, for the Suda Shlishit? Morning, Rabbi. The fact that you could make up the Yom Tov meal that was missed with these type of foods, with meat and fish, according to Tosfot. So would you be able to make up Suda Shlishit, or if a person's not, feels it's difficult for him to have the third meal, could he go ahead and use these type of foods for the third meal on Shabbat? So Tosfos says, first Tosfos says no. He says you cannot do it. Why not? Because when it comes to Shabbat, it says a person has to eat 3 meals on Shabbat. And we learn it out. The pasuk says in Shemot, "Vayomar Moshe ichlu hayom." Moshe says, "I want you to eat today. Ki Shabbat hayom laHashem, because today is Shabbat to Hashem. Hayom lo simse'eu b'sadeh. Today you're not going to find the food in the field. There's no man in the field on Shabbat. The man did not fall on Shabbat. It fell. There's an extra portion of man that fell on Friday. The fact that it says Hayom 3 times, we learn out when it comes to it says the pasuk is talking about eating, and it says I want eating, and it mentions 3 times the word Hayom, which the Torah does not mention extra words. So what is the Torah teaching us? The Torah is teaching us you have to have 3 meals. Ichlu Hayom. You have to eat today. You have to have 3 meals on the Shabbat. That is the source for 3 meals on Shabbat. Now, but this pasuk, when it refers to eating, is talking about the man. You're going to have 3 meals of man. The man was instead of bread, right? Hashem gave us the man instead of having the normal bread of the Jewish people will have. They gave you the man. So therefore, you can't say, you know what, I'm going to use fruit or I'm going to use meat and fish for Suda Shlishit. The Torah talks about achila, Torah talks about eating, and the eating, the Torah obligates you on Shabbat is 3 meals of food of man, which the 3 meals of man is instead of bread. So therefore, the idea is you need to have 3 bread meals on the Shabbat. That is the first approach of Tosfot. And then Tosfot says, even if you're gonna say that you're going to equate and say that you could use meat and fish for the Suda Shlishit on Shabbat, just like by Sukkah, you can make up the meal that you missed with meat or fish. So you can actually use meat or fish as one of the meals, as the last meal for Shabbat. But Tosfot says you would not be able to fulfill the Suda Shlishit with fruit. Because Tosfot says fruit does not need Sukkah. Since fruit does not need Sukkah, meaning we only find that you can make it up with items that require a Sukkah. But since fruit does not need a Sukkah, you can make that. We never found a precedent you can make up the meal of the. You only can make up the meal of the Sukkah with something that requires a Sukkah. Fruit doesn't require a Sukkah. So therefore, the fruit doesn't require Sukkah. You can't make up the meal. Therefore, you can't fulfill your mitzvah of Suda Shlishit with fruit. That is Tosfot's position. So there's two approaches in Tosfot regarding Suda Shlishit. Can you fulfill your obligation with Suda Shlishit with meat or fish? Meaning we have three possibilities on the table. First answer of Tosfos is you have to have bread by Suda Shlishit. And that's what the Shulchan Aruch, Moran HaMechaber says, L'chatchila, you're supposed to have bread for Suda Shlishit. Now soon they're going to be turning the clocks. And it's going to be challenging for some people to have a proper Suda Shlishit. And therefore the Shulchan Aruch says, HaChacham, the smart person, Einav Barosho. The smart person has foresight, that he doesn't fill himself up so much on the day in the meal after, in the morning, Shabbat morning, when you come home from the shul, you don't fill yourself up. I always say dessert makes the big difference. If you skip dessert, I don't know if the wife will allow that. Anyone's wife will allow that. But if you skip dessert Shabbat morning, then you'll hopefully have room for Suda Shlishit, proper Suda Shlishit. Now, but Tosfos does not even offer fruit as a possibility. Tosfos says, first answer, you have to have bread. Second answer, there's room to suggest that you can even fulfill Suda Shlishit with fish or meat. And that's what the Shulchan Aruch has. That's how the Shulchan Aruch presents it. First opinion of Shulchan Aruch is you have to have bread. You have to have bread. You have to have wash. You have to have wash with bread. Meaning you have to have a minimum of a kazayit of bread, an ounce. And some say, he says, you can fulfill the obligation of, there's another opinion that says you have to have mizonot. Meaning if you don't do hamotzi, the next opinion, Tosfos does not offer that opinion, but there's another opinion that says the second place, the silver medal, is mizonot, food that comes from the 5, wheat, barley, oats, spelt, rye, anything from having a kazayit of that, that's the fulfillment of Suda Shlishit. Cake would be an example of that type of stuff. The third opinion is fish or meat and not fruit. And then the fourth, and that's our Tosfot, and second answer. And the last opinion, there is an opinion out there, which is the Ran, in the name of Yesh Omrim, that says that you can even fill the mitzvah with fruit. So, but at the end of the day, the Shulchan Aruch says in Mechaber, so there's 4 opinions about Suda Shlishit, and he says, Svara Rishona Ika, Shesarech La'asot B'pat. He says the main opinion is that Suda Shlishit is supposed to be with bread, Ela Imkain Husaveh B'yoter, unless you're too full and you're too full and you can't have bread. Then if that situation you're too full, then the Shulchan Aruch says, okay, then you got the next opinion. Go for the silver medal. Go for the mizonot. If you can't go for the mizonot, go for the fish and the meat. You can't go for the fish and the meat, then go for the fruit. That's the That's the order. It's just interesting that this issue is brought up from our Tosfot about the food that was made up for the meal that was missed on the first night of Sukkot. According to the opinion, it said that you have to make up the meal that you missed in the Sukkah. Okay, is everything clear? Anybody have any questions on what we just said? Okay, we are now on Chav Zayin and Aleph. We're continuing in the Gemara. We're on 27a. Sha'al. This is 27a4 on the top of the page. Sha'al Apitropos shel Agrippas HaMelech. There was this Apitropos, Agrippas HaMelech would be, let's say, in the time of the Hashmonaim, when the Jewish people ruled Israel, let's say, that time period towards the end of the second Beit HaMikdash. And there was someone who oversaw the properties of the king. He was responsible for the properties of the king. And he asked the following question. Kigun ani sheyesh li, one second. Kigun ani, a person like myself, she'ani ragil echol ela suda achat beyom. I only eat one meal a day. I only eat one meal a day. Most people eat 2 meals a day. And I eat one people have a meal in the morning and one people have a meal at night. And that's what Rabbi Eliezer held originally, that the same way you have 2 meals a day in your house, so too you have to have 2 meals a day in the sukkah. You have to have 2 meals. You have to go to the sukkah. You have to have bread, both in the day and at night. That's it. Because the sukkah has to be like your house. You live in the sukkah like you live in your house, and therefore you have to go ahead and have bread in your sukkah the day and at night. Then he retracted from that. He doesn't require that. But at the time period that he held that way, he says, what about me? Do I fulfill my obligation? I only eat 1 meal a day. If I generally eat 1 meal a day, would I be able to fulfill my obligation by just continuing eating my 1 meal? That's a normal meal. That's a normal amount that I eat in my house. So when it comes to the holiday of Sukkot, when I go to the Sukkah, I should only have to go ahead and eat 1 meal in the Sukkah, or do I have to be more like the general public that has 2 meals every day, and therefore I should also have to have 2 meals every day in the Sukkah? So Omar Lo, so he says to him, Rabbi Eliezer answers, B'chol yom v'yom ata mamshich kama paparot. Every day you eat many appetizers, right? Something is called an appetizer. Why is it called an appetizer? Because it brings the appetite. That's why it's called an appetizer. You eat many appetizers to go ahead and to bring you to give you that appetite to have a meal made out of bread. You and you're doing that for your own honor, because it's very good for you. You enjoy it. For your own enjoyment, every day you have all these appetizers to go ahead and bring out a big appetite. So then you'll really enjoy your main course, your bread meal. So v'achshav, the holiday of Sukkot, you're not able to go ahead and have an extra delicacy to go ahead and to increase your appetite, that you could have the kvod koncha, for the honor of your creator, that you should be able to go ahead and have an extra meal, to have that extra meal, to have 2 meals a day. You're not able to go ahead and show that honor that you're going to the sukkah to having 2 meals a day. So he felt that you should go ahead, if you're able to, if it's easy for you to go ahead and be like everybody else, to have 2 meals, so you should go ahead, and that's what you're supposed to do. It's not, you should go ahead and you should have that extra appetizer, have that extra appetite for another meal. There's no big deal for you to get in the mood, to get into the appetite of having 2 meals of bread. So that's what you should do. You should go ahead and be like everybody else. The old shalom. And then this apitropos, this person who was overseeing the estate, say chief of staff, or meaning he's in charge of, but chief of staff, he doesn't mean the government, chief of his estate, the complex of the king, the estate of the king. He asked the following question: I have two wives, which is a very rare thing. We find very rare. I think the Aruch HaShulchan also talks about it in Even Ezer. It's very rare that people marry two wives. We don't find the Gemara too much of it. This rabbi had two wives. Very rare. Even Abraham, he only took Hagar because he was married to Sarah. He was 75 when he left Haran. When he left Haran, he was 75 years old. He still only had Sarah. Even
Noah had two?
Noah also had one wife. He came with his wife and his three sons and their wives into the Teva.
I thought Naamah, and he had a pleasure wife and a.
That was someone else. That wasn't Noah. That was someone else. Right. And then that, of course, and that's looked down upon. You know what I'm saying? That's not the norm. That's a person who's a man of ta'ava. Person who's a man of desire. He wants to keep one wife in perfect shape all the time. She doesn't want his wife to look, to become pregnant and look heavy. That's a person. That's a person who goes into his desires. But it's not the common thing to, even throughout the Gemara, to have two wives. But here, whatever this man had two wives. Now, a person, on a Torah level, person is allowed to have two wives, and you could understand why the Torah would allow two wives in a case person marries a woman and she gets married and he loves her, but let's say the situation she's not capable of having children for whatever reason, or they're trying to have children and married for a certain amount of years. You can understand why there could be an allowance to have another wife. He loves the first wife, but he'll have to love his second wife as well to be able to have children. But you can understand it. Okay. But what? Right. These two wives, here we are in the land of Israel, time of the Chashmonaim, the story of Hanukkah, that time period, after that time period. One wife was in Tiberia and one wife in Sipori. They're not in the same town, two different towns. And therefore, Yeshli stays Sukkot. So the holiday of Sukkot, I have a sukkah both in my home, my place where my wife is in Tiberia, and I have a sukkah also in Sipori. Can I go from one sukkah to another sukkah? That means to say, do I have to stay in one sukkah? Do I have to be in one sukkah throughout the holiday? Or can I today I'll be in this sukkah, and tomorrow I'll be in Sipori? Could I sukkah hop? Assignment says, could I sukkah hop? So that's this opinion. We're right, but of course, the halacha, of course, we say you don't need to be in the same sukkah. You could have sukkah, so you could have a sukkah down here. You could have a sukkah deal. You could be here for one part of the holiday, and your sukkah deal another part of the holiday. There's no problem. But this rabbi held it is a problem. This rabbi has held you have to be in the same sukkah. You can't you can't move around to different sukkot during the holiday. But that's the question that this rabbi, this apitropos, this worker who managed the house of the estate of the king, he asked, I have two wives, he says, two different places. Can I go from one sukkah to another sukkah? Amar lo. Rabbi Eliezer held you cannot. You cannot be in two Shani Omer. Because I Rabbi Eliezer, meaning this is my unique position. It's not a position that's a popular position. But it's what I say. If a person actually goes, you hear that, Adam? He goes from one sukkah And then he goes to another sukkah, eats the sukkah number one, and then he eats the sukkah number two. He sleeps in sukkah number one night, sleeps in sukkah number two the next night. He doesn't get credit, and he even loses whatever he did in the first sukkah. Because you have to be the sukkah that you go to has to be a sukkah of you're spending your 7 days. Kol hayotzei misukkah l'sukkah bitel mitzvateh shel harishonah. You actually knocked out, you nullified, bitel, like bitul chametz. You mavatel the chametz, you nullify the chametz. I hold that you lose the mitzvah. It's not considered a mitzvah because it has to be, it's like there's a question of svira to omer, counting svira. There's a question in the commentaries: is every night a separate mitzvah, or is one long mitzvah of counting the 49 days? So, if you hold it's one long mitzvah, so that means at the end of the day you didn't do the mitzvah. If you missed day number 20 and you did the first 19 days, you lost out. You never really retroactively, you didn't do the mitzvah. The mitzvah was to count for 49 days. You didn't do the mitzvah. Most opinions hold each night is a separate mitzvah. Each says yes.
So what if you invited tonight to go to
a neighbor of guest, right? So he's
the next night he said, "Oh, we love you to come."
Right. So according to Rabbi Eliezer, right. So according to Rabbi Eliezer, you can't. If someone wants to invite you to their sukkah, you can't. You have to have your sukkah. This is your sukkah. This is you know what it's like, Simon? It's your house, most probably. You live in the sukkah. I mean, we're going to see what the source is, but without looking, outside, you could say an idea. The sukkah has to. This is your house. You have to establish your place, your sukkah. This is your house, and you sleep in your house, and that's okay. Right. So Rabbi Eliezer holds. Rabbi Eliezer holds. Where do you sleep? You sleep in your house. This is your house. I mean, it's not insulting. Everybody knows that this week of the holiday, this week I can't go. I have to. It's a very personal. I have my own sukkah. I be in my own sukkah. I have. We're going to see also. Rabbi Eliezer might hold. Rabbi Eliezer holds that you have to have your own sukkah. Rabbi Eliezer holds you cannot go to your friend's sukkah. It's very personal. Rabbi Eliezer's understanding is that the mitzvah of sukkah, just like the first day of Sukkot, you need to own the lulav the first day of Sukkot. So too, you need to go ahead and have to own. It has to be your sukkah. Your sukkah, very personal. You should know, by the way, somebody told me that they're going to their father's dedicating a Sefer Torah. So I told him, by the way, you should know that your father, when he gives the Sefer Torah to the shul, he should not gift it to the shul. Rabbi Ovadia Yosef says, don't gift it to the shul. You should still own the Sefer Torah. You give it to the shul could use it as long as they want, but at any time you want to take back, you want that Sefer Torah, you or your children want it, it's yours, because the mitzvah is, Ata kisu lachem. You should write for yourself a Torah. You need to own it. It needs to be yours. It is that personal ownership that you need to have of a Torah. If you're capable of affording a Torah, you need to own it. And I think Rav Ovadia writes that they write on the inside of the case, that they write this point, that they say that the Sefer Torah belongs to so and so. So it's clear. And right, so nidvas, and it's very good. So the nidvas, when it says the donation should be, it's donated for whatever amount of time. I'm donating it for a certain. If you donate yourself, you lend yourself to the community. You still belong to yourself, but you're giving to the community. So as long as it's the shul is using it, that's your donation to the shul. But you're not giving it. You shouldn't. Rabbi Ovadia Yosef's opinion is you shouldn't gift it permanently to the shul. You should still own it. Of course, you let the shul use it. That's beautiful of you. That's that's still a donation. that you give them the right to use it. But it's that personal idea regarding this. But again, in la halacha, we do say that, so it comes out by the Sefer Torah, you need to own the Sefer Torah. And also, when it comes to the first day of Sukkot and outside of the land of Israel, the first 2 days of Sukkot, you need to own the lulav. It has to belong to you. You can't borrow someone's lulav on the first day of Sukkot. You could go in and ask him, could he gift it to you? Even though he could gift it to you with a condition, even with a condition that you're going to return it to him, but when it's gifted to you, it belongs to you. You need to own the lulav on the first day of Sukkot. That's the halacha. There's that's the accepted halacha. You don't say to someone, I want to borrow your lulav on the first day.
You don't have to go to the shul and go to Sukkah there.
So, okay, so if it's not yours, so the question will be, if the sukkah of the shul, right, or sukkah of a shul is not called yours, meaning because you're paying dues for it, you're doing certain things, but if it's not yours, if it's somebody else's, that's not considered yours. But you should know, we'll end with one more halacha regarding a talit. To say a bracha on a talit, also, you borrow talit, you don't say a bracha. You say a bracha on a talit that belongs to you. If you borrow
What about
a talit,
in the shul, Rabbi?
the shul, because it belongs to the members, belongs to the people. Therefore, you have a right to say a bracha. But if you're lending me your talit, I cannot say a bracha on the talit.
Never knew that.
You have to gift it to me, and you give it to me on the condition I should give it back to you. But I borrow talit does not. It could be, I have to look up, if you borrow it for more than 30 days, maybe you have to put on tzitzit. But if it's borrowed less than 30 days, you do not need to, there's no put on tzitzit. It's patur from tzitzit. So therefore, you don't borrow a talit. I want to wish everyone a beautiful day. We'll continue tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.